Welcome to the Compliance Experts podcast, hosted by Vartan Consultancy. Miles Vartan and his guests, as experts in compliance and risk management, will guide you carefully and with clarity through the many sectors of compliance like health and safety, ISO and operator licenses, and the complexity of customs regulations. They'll also be talking about the latest legislation, global trade news, and the hot topics as they happen.
Morning everybody, and welcome to the Compliance Experts latest podcast. And today I'm lucky to have with me Ian Curry, who is a business advisor for the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce. Ian's has this fantastic CV where he spent 19 years in the RAF and then spent a long time with Marshalls up in Cambridge. For those who don't know Marshalls, big aerospace references in terms of engineering. And Samuel Kalibala, who worked with Vodafone for a while and now works for the Chamber, also as a business advisor. I actually supply services to the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce in terms of Sizewell C, and we're all here to try and make sure that we can maximise the benefit of what could be one of the most significant projects in East Anglia and in Suffolk for a long time. So morning everybody, how are you? Are you well?
Morning, Miles.
Good morning, Miles.
We've got a recent PowerPoint presentation, from EDF where the dates are starting to be solidified on this project. So we've got the 25th of February where the examining authority is going to report back to BAYS. And then on the 25th of May, an expected date for the Quasi-Kwarteng to come back and give his decision on moving forward for Sizewell. There is another date, the 6th of July, which could be the end of the judicial review period if judicial review comes into play. Now, I just wanted to put a little bit of context into the time that a SME has been listening to news about Sizewell. So I went to the first meeting in Suffolk in 2009 where EDF said they were going to build 2 power stations in the UK, one in Somerset and one in Suffolk. Following on quickly from 2009, we had the Fukushima disaster where nuclear power stations got hit by a tidal wave, and then a major backer of the project withdrew in 2013. So it was like a stuttering start. But Hinkley went through all the planning and the DCO and everything that Hinkley Point C that Sizewell was going through now, and started construction in December 2018. So even then, we were almost 10 years from the first time that companies have started to listen about this exciting prospect. And now in 2022, we're going to be several years on from there in terms of actually stuff happening at Sizewell. So Ian, you and I have been to many senior management meetings in our time where people have almost presented us with strategies and asked us for our contribution in terms of actually getting things done and designing new ways of working. But with this extended time from 2009 right through to 2022, it has been quite difficult, hasn't it, for SMEs to get their heads around the types of decisions they need to make to be ready for a big project like Sizewell?
Yes, I would agree. Although from my own background in aerospace and defence, any large capital equipment programme that's in the billions of pounds, it never seems to quite run to time. And the key thing often with these is you need obviously government approval and you need investors. And other things come into play. We've just had COVID, and clearly there are other demands therefore on the funds. So that's the challenge. And I think something that came up recently in a webinar we had listening into experience from Hinkley Point. One of the key things they said there was, what do companies need? You need patience, especially in these projects. But once the ball starts to get rolling, then you need to be proactive and you need to be able to be responsive. So for smaller companies, who tend to work on a more of a shorter timeline, it can think like, oh, this is never going to happen. Certainly in my area, looking at some of the sort of strategic stuff I was doing in the defence space, the timeline you've just outlined is something I've encountered. I remember doing initial cost studies for a new aircraft project back in 2009. And the aircraft, in theory, should be entering service this year, but it's actually been delayed for other things. So when you get into large projects of this scale, It's not unusual, but you just have to keep your situational awareness up. You've got to listen out and keep track. And the fact that we're able now to sort of give you, reasonably accurate timelines, at least as far as decision in this year, I think is a really positive move.
So we have 237 working days until the 1st of January 2023, and these businesses are already successful businesses. They already have existing work going on. They've got lots of projects that they're managing already. It's almost, isn't it, as if you need to take a big deep breath and say, does this fit in with my strategy? And then how do I get going? I would anticipate that you're almost going to have to now dedicate people within your business to concentrate on Sizewell as part of their daily job.
Yeah, I would agree absolutely there. Firstly, you've got to make a conscious decision. Is this for you? Does it fit you? Because you either do it or you don't do it. There's kind of no halfway effort. If you're not going to bid to win, then you're kind of wasting time and you're perhaps confusing, your own objectives. So you've got to be sure, this is what we want to do. And then you're going to have to make sure you put the effort in to do it. Because getting the start of the project is one element. But then there'll be, if you're not used to the more involved, highly regulated world, you've got to go through a pre-qualification process to establish that, your business is a going concern, that you have the right competencies to deliver the work. And then you've also got to convince the buying teams, that you can deliver. And you can deliver on time, on schedule, to the right quality. And also be able to react to, issues and manage risk. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be all about managing risk. But you need to be confirmed that this is a project you want to do. And I think one of the things we've seen with Hinkley Point there's a load of companies signed up, but maybe only 10% respond to a tender opportunity. So that suggests that there are a load of companies who signed up that maybe weren't fully clear in their own mind that it was something they wanted to do.
Sam, you and I have had conversations where we've talked about companies having to be nimble and agile. And I suppose when you look at the construction timeline for the actual power station, it's like a 12-year timeline. It's almost like there is a temptation sometimes, I imagine, to just relax a bit. But have you found when you've been speaking to companies that there are some businesses in Suffolk who have already pressed the go button and are making changes within their own businesses to get ready for this?
I usually go out and speak to businesses, and what I tend to find is, you've been with this project, 8 years ago. So some businesses that had that news 8 years ago that made these changes and put the right moves in place 8 years ago, most of that was redundant because things and the timeline kind of changed so much. Some businesses perhaps found the opportunity to be a bit of a myth and a bit of a gamble if they try to pay really early. And some have found that some of the changes that we certainly go out and speak to people about are now paying dividends because they've now got themselves in a great state in order to carry out other work and have business and network with other businesses in the portal. So in some aspects, it's been fantastic for those changes and that preparation. And some, perhaps, like Ian was mentioning, the unknowns that can occur for businesses. Some of those unknowns have been a bit of a detriment to some businesses, but businesses are recovering. And if you're agile enough and nimble enough, and you do hire the right people, because 8 years, the staff that you spoke to 8 years ago are probably not the staff that I'm speaking to today. So
exactly. When you think that we're 4 years into Hinkley, and if those who watched the BBC documentaries about Hinkley look at the Chamber website for updates on Hinkley, the amount of work they've managed to achieve, and actually, it looks like starting to look like a real power station now. We're within the team, we hear keywords like intelligent replication. And I looked at the construction playbook, the Cabinet Office construction playbook that is referred to increasingly by EDF now and their tier ones. And there's a section in there about we need to think about projects and programs in new ways. Transformational change will only be achieved by systematically approaching risk, sustainability and innovation across portfolios of projects and programs. We need to harness the excellence which already exists and learn from this drive, progress and strengthen the health of the sector. And the construction playbook fell out of the incredibly tragic event at Grenville, where there was a massive review how these major projects were planned. And these disciplines now and this attitude is being applied to this project. So I come back to both of you this is like really quite difficult, I think, for businesses who possibly haven't been involved in major infrastructure projects before to not only satisfy the requirements of the tier ones who are going to be employing them and going to be reviewing their bids, but also just getting their culture to reflect the culture of the business bidding for the work, to get their culture to reflect the significance and the size of this project. How would you begin, Ian, if when you turn up at a business and you were given the chance to present to a board of directors to, say, a good size, major local business in the construction, what would be some of the key things that you would try and get across? So they've been to a chamber event to learn about the project, and they've now asked us in to give them some advice as to next steps. Where would you start?
Actually, that's some of the things we've had to do recently. I think you touched on a few things. This is a massive project, and as I say, if you look at the pictures of Hinckley, you can see it's humongous with 8,000 people on site and claims of something in the order up to 25,000 people across the rest of the supply chain back in factories and what have you, all playing a part in bringing it together. So the key thing here is it's well beyond the scale of any one company, and also the other things, lessons learned from the likes of the collapse of Carillion is big capital strategic projects like this cannot fail once they're started. We've got to get going. So the procurement process now will not put all of that importance on one project. So companies have got to carry on doing their business as usual. And so if you're an SME, you're probably thinking, well, actually, I can't deliver this project, but you can deliver bits of it. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to have to collaborate. You're going to have to find partners. And in some cases, those partners might be your competition. And we found that even with talking to some of the big companies, they said, I was over in Cambridgeshire, and this is miles away. I didn't think about that. And you said, but, the scale of it, and you've got a product that will come into play. What you've also got to recognise that at the moment, we've got a whole raft of strategic projects going on in this country. HS2, obviously Hinckley's going on down there, and then there'll be many other projects going out there. And we were at a recent sort of construction company supplier event recently, and we were finding their SMEs were saying, well, actually, many of the big players are pretty well tied up trying to deliver all these other projects, and we're now finding the work is flowing down. So we're finding that there's a lot of work there. The key thing is, you've got to use your contacts. You've got to start working together. By yourself, you can't do it. But you've probably got something that if you work with somebody else, you can present a more complete offering. So collaboration, and certainly what we're encouraging them to do is your current supply chain, in the field you're working in, ask the question, are you guys interested in working on Sizewell C? Have you thought about it? And maybe if you have, there's something collaboratively we can do here. Because if we're going to maximise the opportunity for Suffolk and the region, it's going to be about building scale. And the only way you're going to be able to build scale is for Suffolk and Norfolk, Essex, Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire companies to come together to bring that scale and win the work to that area. So it's collaboration and cooperation is going to be a key aspect to that.
That's right. And I mean, you look at successful businesses in Suffolk and Norfolk, and they're in particular fields, and they've managed to do it without collaboration and without working together. So some of them are actually deadly rivals who will either win or lose out on contracts when they go for them together. And there's a divide which they have to cross to actually get over themselves in terms of this problem about consultation and collaborative workings. And I think, I know the Chamber are already talking to people about behavioural attitudes and getting companies to learn about durable frameworks that could be created and give you the confidence to invest in a collaborative venture, knowing that you're going to be getting the return on your investment, and it's going to be safe, and it's not going to put your own business at risk.
I mean, one other point, just to add, my own experience from working in defence programs in the past, where, again, we were a relatively small company and we found ourselves having to partner. If you try to do it by yourself, then you probably you can't cover all the bases, and you probably won't have a very compelling offer. But if you can work with other players, 10% of something is better than 100% of nothing, was always the view that I always said.
Just to kind of piggyback off that point, I have a great example of that, actually. We spoke to a business in Norfolk, which has a close to 200 million turnover. There's a similar business in Suffolk. Now, the two businesses don't get on, and, the CEOs haven't spoken for over 10 years. So my colleague Julia and I went out, spoke to the business in Norfolk. I said, look, guys, this is what's on the table. This is monumental. The contract itself, looking at Hinckley, is worth X amount. Now, you're quite far off by yourself. However, there are some other businesses that, are local, other businesses you can talk to, where you can come together in collaboration, and perhaps you might be big enough to actually service those contracts. So the CEO of the company said, you know what, I'll tell you what, I need to call the guys down the road. I haven't spoken to him, but, hopefully he'll take my call. So made a call, and I suspect that, the chap on the other side said, oh, what does he bloody want now? And when he got put through and they discussed numbers, let's just say that, they buried the hatchets, and they're now...
Pretty persuasive.
Indeed, yeah.
Figures.
Literally, it was a 30-second call in front of us, and hammers were down, and they then had a meeting thereafter.
When you look at some of the economic and community benefits that they've talked about in terms of £125 million a year coming into the area during construction, of £40 million a year for every year after that during operation. Then we've got East of England companies, including Suffolk, have so far won contracts worth over £900 million at Hinkley Point. So they've started to find out down there what the rules of the games are. And if you stick that together with the scenario you've just painted, Sam, it's like you can see graphs, can't you, where lines start going sort of bouncing along and then vertically grow upwards, pretty much in a complete vertical line as companies grow. But as companies grow, risks increase, overheads increase. You need to have good business continuity plans. You need to be able to, you've got to be able to hit right first time, every time. I have seen some of the tier ones procurement requirements that were down in Hinckley, and they're challenging. I mean, if you were putting together a presentation for one of the ones I've been looking at, there are 25 different headings that they're going to expect you as an SME to explain how you're going to be able to adhere to get through the first stage of their procurement channels. I'm thinking, both of you, Ian and Sam, that as soon as the tier ones formally get announced in terms of this project, and of course everything is slightly hung up on the 25th of February, and if that comes back green, then I suppose everything accelerates even more. But as soon as possible, get tier ones to speak to the SMEs locally and say, this is what we need you to do. This is how we need you to present yourself, because we have our own supply chain rules. We're going to have to commit to huge risk in terms of if we go and win work at Sizewell, and we can only do that with your support. That, I think, is like a milestone, isn't it? The first meeting from a tier one saying, this is what we need you to do.
Certainly those are the things that we're pushing for at the moment within the chamber. Is, we need to know, so the moment it's in a transitional phase, so it's been in the planning phase and it's starting to transition as the likelihood of the project becomes more likely. Therefore, once that structure is established and they've agreed the sort of work share between tier ones and the sort of consortium is formally stood up, we then now start to know who we're dealing with in terms of procurement teams. But we're obviously going to be working at a number of different levels here. So my particular role is in the sort of supplier matching. So as and when top-level packages of work get released, I look for companies with capabilities and I try and match them to them. But for some of the SMEs, there won't be a package of work that's sort of exactly for them. They will be essentially providing a service that's a contributory element. I don't know, let's say you're doing the Sizewell Link Road. Traffic management might be part of that, but there won't be a traffic management work package, but there's essentially the Sizewell Link Road package, which involves a whole range of skill sets in there. And so we will then be looking to work with the tier one for that package of work to help them then find the subsidiary and supporting tier one, tier two, tier three suppliers. And one of the key things we want to get as soon as the structure is clear is at least what are the top level kind of compliance requirements. So what will you be needing to demonstrate, at least as a first pass PQQ, to show that you're eligible to bid for the work. And then clearly, as you get into more specific packages of work, there'll be more tailored and specific criteria, approvals, accreditations that you may need for that. Lessons learned from Hinkley initially were that because it was a nuclear program, they were going to apply the Fit for Nuclear sort of accreditation requirements across the board. But I think the realization came that, well, actually, if you're not directly involved on the nuclear infrastructure, the nuclear sort of construction piece, you're involved in the supporting, like you're delivering catering or you're delivering accommodation services to the temporary structures. Well, you don't need to be Fit for Nuclear. What you do need to do is be able to deliver food in the appropriate manner. So those sort of accreditations will start to become clearer, package by package. But the first elements will be around the business as a going concern, that you've got the right mindset, behaviours, safety, clearly safety, and commitment to deliver to quality will be key things to demonstrate.
Exactly. And these tier ones are not tier ones by accident. I mean, these huge businesses that have been involved down in Hinkley have been, some of them over 100 years old, successful businesses, and they've over the years have developed their own supply chains. So there's things for them to learn too. First of all, they need to find Suffolk. They need to find where Suffolk is on the map and where this power station is going to be built. And then they're having to follow new direction from government in terms of which is reflected in the playbook, where there's a neat little summary here where it says the playbook will, by creating the right environment, enable us to improve building and workplace safety, ensure we're creating safe facilities and protecting our workforces. And Sam and I had an interesting conversation at a latest engagement meeting with a gentleman who was really concentrating on welfare and mental health and looking after workforces that way. Take strides towards our 2050 net zero commitment, government's 2050 net zero commitment, and focus on a whole life carbon approach to fight climate change, deliver greener facilities, and promote social value, which will help local communities recover from COVID, tackle economic inequality, promote equal opportunities, and improve well-being. Neatly signed up these days. If you turn up at 4:30 for your briefing at government, and you just have to say, levelling up. So we're in a new world here where we've got tier ones having to nuance their own supply chains. And we've got to get, and I think this is the key thing for us locally here in Suffolk, we've got to make sure that if there is a good business or a good collaborative venture or a sound minds in Suffolk, that there's no reason why these tier ones, once we've done the introduction, shouldn't use them unless they don't match up to the requirements. So we need to make sure everybody understands the requirements. We've got to make sure that the SMEs understand the requirements and everything else, including, biodiversity and sustainability and investment in apprenticeships, workforce inequality, eliminating inequality. So get all these things into the cooking pot, come out the end with no reason why tier ones shouldn't engage and actually sign up local suppliers. I think it would be a poor result if local suppliers missed out on this opportunity because somehow or other the tier ones didn't know about them. How are we going to get these SMEs to really make sure that the tier ones know about them?
Just probably worth just adding at this point, one of the other benefits for those local suppliers is that the development consent order to the DCO and part of the planning approval comes with commitments to deliver local and regional economic
Yes, it does.
benefit.
That's right. Yeah.
And, the companies will be incentivized or even be penalized if they fail to achieve that. So that's another thing that's going in the direction of local and regional companies is it's somewhere in the region of between 1.5 to 2 billion for Suffolk and up to 4.5 billion for the region. And that's throughout the life of the project. So they have to achieve that. So the sooner you can get yourself in a position to take advantage of that, it's like one of these things, once you've got your foot in the door and you're delivering, well, then there's the opportunity for follow-on.
In good old-fashioned language then, I think we are talking, aren't we, about, having a project manager being tasked to actually evaluate the cost-benefit analysis of them getting involved in the project, but then really working hard to make sure that the business he or she is working for hit the prerequisites that these tier ones need to see to persuade them to make that decision to engage with a local business. You agree, Sam?
Yes, I 100% agree that, especially now that we're not too far off getting a green light, businesses actively have to bring somebody in, a department or a one-man band to come into the business to make sure that they then take care of everything Sizewell, because it's happening now, really. This is the year, and in terms of preparation, and like Ian said at the beginning, that we don't want businesses to kind of just prepare and put all their eggs in one basket, which is the Sizewell basket. You still have to, have your business as usual. So you can't really turn all your attention from your business into Sizewell. So having somebody is great preparation. But also, like Ian said, there are stipulations in place around this project that all companies have to adhere to. Tier 1 company is going to be held responsible, and that will go right down to the smallest one-man band in the team coming on board. So everybody's going to be on the same page, which is very important. And those framework bullet points that you touched on help everybody to have that confidence that the person they're working next to in the trenches, as it were, is of the same frame of mind and on the same page. And I think that really, is a great thing. I know Hinckley is 5 years into its construction, but we're still learning, from them on a daily basis. And yeah, it's all about preparation, and I think companies have to make sure.
And 80% of new nuclear is the old phrase is that 80% of new nuclear is non-nuclear. So there's an awful lot of things that
Indeed.
this huge construction site and the operation will need, from everything from paint manufacturers to security companies to pest controllers to caterers and everything. So
I had the pleasure of taking care of the accommodation aspect of the project, and one of the things around that is creating this campus, which is effectively is going to be a small town. Now, every single thing that a small town requires, is also going to be, there's also going to be a requirement for that. So in a week, I'm speaking to, people about sausage rolls, cleaners, window cleaners, personal trainers, gym instructors, barbers, you name it. There's something for everybody, and it's about getting that across. Generally, people think civil engineering when it comes to this kind of project.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot out there for everybody.
There's another point I thought Sam just touched on earlier on just then, which is we're still learning. So yes, there's a lot of learning to be done at Hinckley, but the other challenge that we've got, which is driving this whole project, and we're moving into a different generation now, is obviously the impact of climate change. So the impact of climate change is driving the project. But how, for instance, Hinckley is executed is largely in a conventional form. It hasn't probably the way they're going about building certain elements has been reasonably well established in the recent past. And a lot of, for instance, their construction is diesel powered. We go to Sizewell, and whilst there'll still be elements of that, there are new technologies coming along around zero emissions, transportation and so forth, which are not yet proven. So yes, people are used to perhaps seeing electric cars and things around. But when it gets to larger vehicles, this is something that's still very much in the early days. So companies who have got innovations and ideas, there's opportunity here. If you've got a really good project that can help in some of that space that does something slightly different, well, here's that opportunity to put it out there. And I think also because of the demands, companies are now being more receptive to other ideas.
Just trying to sort of maybe settle down on a couple of key messages which we can leave people with. I have been to events where you've seen panic in eyes and people look like they're caught in literally in a tunnel with the train coming towards them, and somebody will then say, yeah, but you don't need to worry so much because nothing's going to happen for a couple of years, and there's a sort of almost like a foot comes off the accelerator. And I think what I would be saying to people is, right, find out about the project, find out about how your business could benefit from here, find out about the timelines, and don't stop thinking positively. Once you've made that decision that you want to get involved, don't stop thinking positively about the project. Get your planning going now, because as you explained right at the beginning, Ian, you can do a nice drawing of a plane, 20 years, it still isn't been made. It takes a long time to adapt your business and get new products out there, making sure that they hit all the regulatory requirements and things like this. So I think what we, as we're a consultancy business trying to get people to manage risk, I think the Chamber effectively is doing the same thing. we need to be speaking to these businesses, don't we, along those lines, so they pick up momentum, but then keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I think from my own experience in a business planning world, you really need to be clear on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Get your objectives clear. So now, if you're thinking about it, then you can't go into it half-hearted. If you think, I can offer something, then you need to go in, with commitment, but also understand that you aren't going to be allowed to expose the sort of whole of your business to this project. I think the working sort of, certainly for the larger companies, is around about 25% of turnover. So the other thing, therefore, is work out who you're going to partner with. This whole thing is a partnership project. Lots of different companies involved. It's not winner takes all. It's about collaboration. So work out how you're going to do that. Work out who you can partner with, and use the time now to start to build those relationships.
And
Sam, go on. Over to you.
Yeah, I was usually going to say, just off the back of that it's quite evident now that things are really heating up. I think there's a lot more noise. If you are on LinkedIn and social media, there's a lot more news, a lot more updates now. We've got visits from ministers. We have in the chamber, we're having an awful lot of events. So I think there's something in the air which says, look, this is going to happen, and it's about to happen very, very soon. And certainly that probably wasn't the case 8 years ago or even 5 years ago. So I think it's quite evident for businesses that they might have been a little bit skeptical some time ago. However, it's happening now. Keep your ear to the ground. There's a lot more communication from us as well.
And I would tell people, I would encourage people to shout about what you do. Tell people, tell companies, make sure that using all your social media, social selling channels, all your websites, keep them up to date, but shout about what you're doing and don't never fail this test that people got to know about you. You've got to be on the platform. You've got to be on Sizewell C supplychain.co.uk. That's really an imperative, but just make sure that you don't fail in terms of pretty much adhering to classic marketing rules, and just tell people what you're doing. Make sure people know what you're doing.
And I think that's happening actually, Miles, because Chamber, the team is growing by the day. But also our portal entries, going back when I started a year ago, they're just increasing month by month in terms of who's getting involved. So the message is definitely going out there, and I think people are sharing information or knocking on the neighbour's door to say, hey, are you aware? Do you know? So I think that's coming along.
Back in years gone by, Sam, we used to get, when I was full-time at the Chamber, we were lucky if we got 10 new sign-ups a month. And now we're getting that a day, aren't we? We're getting, people are signing up pretty rapidly now. The experience from Hinckley was, once the DCO came back with a positive response, again, there was a huge increase in registrations as people realised it was a real project. Well, listen, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything, in terms of closing key things, or anything else, Ivy, you would like to say before I sort of wrap up?
Just to echo your point, if you're not already signed up on the portal, as I said, Sizewell C supplychain.co.uk, please register. Even if you are, can you make sure that the data you've got on there is up to date, especially contacts, points of contacts and so forth. We've had events, and sometimes we struggle to get hold of people who've signed up. And if you want an update, get in touch with the likes of Sam or myself. We will be more than happy to give you a Teams call or come and visit and give you a little bit of an overview of the project, where it is, discuss more specifically maybe where you might fit in, and we'll try and convey to you the best information as we have it at the particular time. And we'll, even if it's just drop an email every so often, and if we've got something to tell you, we'll do that. But also, if you're signed up, you'll get regular updates of our newsletters and things that just keep you appraised of what's going on.
Thank you, Ian. Sam?
Yeah, just dovetailing to Ian's sentiment there. Pretty much, it doesn't matter what size of business you have. There's something for everybody. It's not about civil engineering. Like I said, I'm talking to barbers and personal trainers and you name it. There's something for everybody. So, don't be afraid to get in touch. My email address is samuel@suffolkchamber.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. The team is on there. So please, get in touch, and we'll be happy to come out and see you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard you talking about five-a-side football, Sam, in terms of keeping people balanced and, when they're not at work, having ways to de-stress. You never know. Arsenal might even find a player from the Sizewell C Community Hub. Well, listen, thank you very much for your contribution. That's been great. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have got a subject you'd like us to talk about at the Compliance Experts, then please let us know. As you can see, it's a easy thing to join in. We'd be really interested in hearing your views. You can get a download of this podcast. It will be out on the usual channels. Please give us any feedback you can. And have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Miles.
Thanks. Cheers, Ian. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Miles.
Thank you for listening to the Compliance Experts podcast. We highly value your input and welcome any questions, thoughts or challenges for us to tackle in forthcoming episodes. Vartan Consultancy pride themselves in helping customers manage risk and subsequently helping them improve their overall company performance. To speak to Miles and his team, visit vartanconsultancy.com. This podcast is produced and managed by podtalk.co.uk and is the copyright of Vartan Consultancy. This podcast is created for entertainment purposes only. Views and opinions are that of Vartan Consultancy and their guests. Information recorded in this episode was deemed correct at the time of recording. However, we advise you to always check with Vartan Consultancy for up-to-date information and legislation.